Yeah, it is. That's awesome.
You guys ready?
Yeah, I love that.
Who's not ready? Ashley's ready. I got to clap. On Zoom, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I mean,
give me a thumbs up. Good. Thanks, Conrad.
let me know.
Ian, you ready?
Sure.
All right, let's do this. Hey, so just before Ian comes up here, just give you a little bit of backstory. I'm super excited he's here. I've known Ian for a long time. Do you know how many years it's been? 10?
Yeah.
Plus? So I had a friend that wanted to invest and build a portfolio. I helped him buy like 8 or 9 properties. He had a friend that said, dude, I want to do what you do. This is Dylan.
Yeah.
So he says, call Jeff. So I helped Dylan start buying properties. I don't remember how many did, 4 or 5 properties. He's a friend of Ian's. Ian says, I want to do what you're doing. And he says, call Jeff. So I started working with Ian. This is before he was an agent. He started buying his rental properties. You're going to hear his story today. But what was cool as part of his evolution was, just like Dylan, they both ended up saying, this is pretty awesome. I'm going to get my license and help other people do this as well. So Dylan's license, he's in Colorado. Ian got his license. Now he's part of Team Limitless. Y'all know him. And so we're excited for that. But it just a great kind of like testament to the referrals and doing a good job for people. And what we were talking about earlier about telling people about your journey. Take people on your journey with you. This is what I'm doing, or this is what I'm working towards. People are going to say, well, I want to do that too. Or I want to do what you've done. You got to talk. You got to have more conversations. You got to be purposeful in the things that you're bringing up in your conversations so that you can have people have those moments and say, I need to do that. And you're the person that's going to be able to help them, right? And so Ian, it took a little coercing to get him, not too much, because I wanted him to do this for a minute. No, it wasn't that bad. You agree. Once I begged on my knees, not. But we sometimes don't realize that we actually have a story to tell because it's our story. It's just our life. It's what we do, right? I've gone through that same process, and I recognize from the outside, dude, what you're doing, more people should do. So I'm excited that Ian's here, and so I'm going to give him the clicker. He's got some PowerPoint slides and stuff. Oh, I gotta go. Ashley's got a slide there for me, it looks like. So those of you that don't know, I'm not sure who all's on Zoom. We do these kind of trainings every week, presentations. We're moving towards this self-development space on things like this. We are on Thursdays now. So those of you that are used to us doing it on Wednesdays every week, we've been doing that for a lot of years. We're on Thursdays now for our regular reoccurring time slot for this. So just make note of that. And with that, the next slide is Ian. So I'm going to go to you. Finish your intro any way you want, and let's rip into it.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. I've never used the clicker.
Let's make sure. I think we're on. We're good.
Which one is what?
Forward.
Forward.
Yep.
Go back.
And you can go back. Yep.
All right. Well, Jeff did a pretty good job. I hope you took points on it because it's bad. So when Jeff asked me, well, I'm Ian, I'm 38. I had a good friend of mine I met, and she does PowerPoints all the time, and she works for KV Core, so kind of a shout out to her, but she helped me do this whole PowerPoint thing, and somehow I got up to 22 slides. So I was thinking, okay, well, I'll have 5 slides and do 10 minutes, hopefully, and then do some questions. Jeff already said he'd help bolster it if needed. So we'll see how it goes. Like he said, I got involved because of a friend of mine that knew him. And then from there, I've come to where I am now. But 2015 is when I wanted to get involved and buy my first property. That's when I did buy my first property. It took a few years to get there, but it was a lot to take in, that first home buying experience. After I purchased my first home with mother-in-law apartment, I realized I loved real estate. I wanted to keep going in it, create a career path somehow, and I knew it was like my out for retirement. So I've worked in social work since 2005. When I was 21, I started working for a troubled youth program, wilderness program. And and I stayed with that till today still. I've been trying to get out of it for the last 3 years because you burn out, or I burned out way too long in it. And I'm ready to do something. I am doing something different, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's that slide, my introduction.
Did you ever put a picture in there of what you looked like in 2015?
Oh no.
Who's laughing? So I want y'all to just picture Ian with full-on dreadlocks.
Well, no, they weren't dreadlocks.
Oh, they weren't dreads?
No, I don't know. Jeff's brought it up a couple times with dreads. Maybe it was just looking nappy, but it was long. I also had a little bit more of a beard here and there. I can show you a picture after, and then I started losing it back here, so got rid of it.
That's awesome.
Okay, second slide. So I was 26 when I started the process of trying to purchase a house. It started when I had bad credit, I had low income, I had no savings, and I had no clue about real estate. Jeff talked about Dylan. Dylan was actually a little farther down in the line. I was friends with this guy that worked in a rehab, and that's where I've been for the last 13 years. I've been working in a residential drug and alcohol rehab as their program manager. But I knew another program manager that was like, hey, I'm going to buy a house. And he had really horrible credit because both of us had the same background with drugs and alcohol. And we got sober kind of around the same time. And so we were kind of trying to patch our lives up at the same time. So I watched him start to work on his credit. And he was talking to this lender that was kind of helping him get there. I thought she was all knowledgeable and she knew everything. Later on, I learned that she didn't quite know. But she got that door open for him. And then I watched him start creating a savings account and start working towards that first house because he wanted that home with the wife and the picket fence and everything. And I didn't really know what I wanted. I just knew that if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it. So he was really the first inspiration for me. He bought his first house and then I moved into it and he kicked me out. Dogs were a part of his life and they were not of mine. In fact, I hated dogs at the time, which is weird because now I love dogs. Hank, to be precise. So I had no clue about real estate, and that's kind of how it started. What I had to change was I worked on raising my credit score. I think I had like a 526 or something. I had to change my spending habits because I didn't have any savings. I had just taken all the money I had and paid off all my debts. And by debts, I mean collections. I had a lot of things in collections. And they kept popping up. And so I had to pay those all off instead of doing the savings. And man, up here, it's a lot different than sitting down there. Mouth is way dry. So I changed my spending habits.
You want that water now? After Jim?
I still have half a mug of coffee. Started living intentionally. So instead of going out and just being in the moment, right? That's how I lived my life for a long time. But I thought in the moment meant, well, I'm going to die tomorrow, so I might as well party it up today. And so instead of doing that, I started living more intentionally, living in the moment, but planning for tomorrow. And seeing how my friend Kevin was doing it helped me be able to do it as well. And surrounding myself with people in the same sort of state of mind. I started researching real estate, talking to my immediates, the people around me, which turns out to be super important in my story, is the people I surround myself with. I've listened to a bunch of books because I don't read very well. And my reading comprehension is pretty low. But then they also talk about, getting yourself a mentor or being around people that you want to emulate. So that's a huge part of my story. My first rental property was back in 2015. When I purchased it, it was not a rental, but my intent was for a rental. So what I wanted was, I had a budget of 200,000, which now is, you're not going to get anything. Unless you go like clear out in the
You
sticks.
can get the lot, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the lot, a small one. And then, so my budget was 200,000. Investment property, I wanted something that I could rent out part of it, because that's what Dylan had done. He had bought a house in Rose Park, and it was a little bit different than it is now. But he lived upstairs with his fiance or girlfriend at the time and his friend, and then downstairs he had renters. And I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. I knew it was going to take a little longer because he had 3 people and I only had me, but I made it happen somehow. The upstairs, I wanted a kitchen, and the downstairs, I wanted a kitchen to do that mother-in-law suite kind of thing. I didn't have any money or really any knowledge of renovations, so I wanted to keep it minor. You know, I don't know how many people have done their own home fix-its, but I found that at the time, opening up a ceiling and putting a range hood in, that terrified me. And I wanted a good location, because that's all I ever heard in real estate from the start is, oh, it's location, location, location. 3 of them, right? There's a lot more now, but what I got was a purchase price of 165, which was uncomfortable for me at the time, because I did have a low-paying job. And for some perspective on the low-paying job, I was, poverty level, and kind of stayed in that realm for a while. The investment property, I got it. The upstairs and downstairs kitchens, I got. The major renovations, over 3 years, I ended up spending $25,000 on it, which was way over what I wanted. Ended up having the tenant in the basement have the sewer raise up in her bathtub a few times, and actually spilled over a few times, came out from underneath the toilet. It was disgusting. It was horrible. She was great at the moment. And so 15,000 of that was just replacing the sewer main, which I guess I liked because I did it again on my next house. But it was a little bit different in that experience, but great tenants at the same time. So I rented the basement after I'd been living there for 6 months. It took me 6 months to put down tile and figure out how to make it manageable, put in windows that were updated, and it was in a great location. If you go into Provo, just right off the freeway off Center Street, it was great for access to anything, really, in my head. And I didn't know Provo at the moment. It turns out the neighborhood, there were some drug dealers that lived up the street and would find needles out in front every once in a while. It's changed a bit now, thank goodness. But that first time I found a needle out front, I was like, oh, my tenant's going to leave. So I did have a church in front of me, so that was nice. It was like, I liked it, because they're only there on Sundays. So with that, then the basement rented for $650, and that included utilities. And I took all that money and put it into a savings account because I learned how to do that. And that was for my next property. My mortgage was at $927, which was expensive for me. And the value of my property was $165,000. Now that property rents, it still is split, and it's $1,800 a month, including utilities. So whoever's living there is getting a good deal. The mortgage is $960 because later on I found out that you could refinance with Corey Lewis, and he's very educational, and man, made the process so easy. The property value now is around $380. So for me, looking back at that, this house was one of the best investments I've ever made, even though it still has knob and tube. which mystifies people, electricians that I've had go out to it, and nobody knows how to work on it these days.
Yeah.
They have to call up some old timer.
Some retired guy.
Yeah, some retired guy and figure it out. And you end up spending a lot of money. So on this property, there were some lessons I learned. Who does the maintenance? You know, the owner, handyman, tradesman, tenant, management company, I kind of had to figure that out as I went. Originally, I intended, well, since I've rented so long, I'm like, well, I know what I have to do. I know what they have to do. But since it's my property, I can really do whatever I want and structure it however I want. At the current time, I was the property manager. Types of maintenance, lawns, heating, cooling, plumbing, cleaning, touches up, appliances, general repair. Like all of that takes up way more time than I ever thought it would, especially the plumbing on this house. And just the general repair, having to go in and do things all the time. It's an old house. The tenant responsibilities, what are they going to work on? Like, are they going to take care of the yard? Are they going to do the utilities? Minor plumbing, cleaning, furnace filters, pets. House had a boiler, so I was set there. But that's a big one in my life now, is making sure that gets cleaned out. Pets, I never wanted to allow pets. I never had a landlord that would allow pets. And so I was like, well, I know they can damage houses, so I don't want to do pets. This house has a very fun story with that. I just recently went through a very large renovation of the property because of pets, including the outside. So property expenditures for this, where I learned about property taxes and the different types. So you have like long-term, short-term, came back to haunt me recently because Provo is amazing. Rental insurance, the different types of rental insurance. I learned about that. I learned about turnover costs. Every time a tenant leaves, what you have to do and spend to get it ready for the next. And licensing, permits, fees, all that fun stuff with it. And I did set up an LLC at the time, I didn't know anything about LLCs. I'm like, oh, I set up an LLC and nobody can ever sue me. I think I've learned a little differently. Nobody has sued me, but the lady that was just in it was the closest I've ever gotten. But that brings me to my second property. And that was in 2018 when I purchased this house in Orem. It's up the hill from then UVSC, Utah Valley State College. Now it's UVU. Great location. So my goal was to maximize profits by renovating while living in the basement. Because I thought, okay, well, if I can get it rented before I even move in, that's even better. Because then I can get my next goal of the 2 years to 18 months of my next property. I'll be even closer. Because at that time, I'm like, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to be able to retire. I wanted to be able to rent out prior to moving in, use property management company this time. I really didn't like having to deal with the lady that was living in the basement in the other house, and I really didn't want to have to deal with anybody. I'm not a big people person. I like the people I know, and I like to hold them close to me. But other people, it's a different story. I care about them just in a different way. But yeah, my goal was 2 years, and I ended up being able to purchase another home in 18 months. So my plan that I set up worked out really well. The stats on this house were it cost $250,000. At the time, that was, I think I was looking up to $300,000 with Corey, and Jeff was my realtor on this as well. He was on the first one. And then I came back to him and said, hey, you want to help me buy another house? And I'd already been talking to Corey, and Jeff's like, yeah, let's do it. So one thing with the cost is like $250 was max out for me. 300 was what I think I approved for, which was crazy to me because I hadn't really gotten any pay raises, and that's almost 100,000 more than the other house. The renovation cost ended up being 25,000 over 6 years to include a full repipe of the house and all the way up to the sewer main. So it didn't take as much. Well, no, it did. Was that the same amount? I don't know. But the total rent I get today is $2,450. So that's not bad. In my head, that's not bad at all. Both houses are cash flowing right now. The lessons I learned, my second loan was easier than my first. The first loan, I had all the stress of buying a first house, and the mortgage lender was horrible. From what I understand, Jeff did a lot of her job, which I was grateful for. And the lender I had this time, man, he just did everything and always was on top of things. So it made it really easy. The income property doesn't always count against your debt and income ratio. That's what I learned with that loan. It's like, okay, well, how can I get this bigger loan if I have this loan already? That was nuts to me. Like, everything I had learned about money was flipped upside down with that. Having a mentor is very helpful, and that I started collecting those. The biggest mentor I had for property investment, though, turned out to be Jeff Marchant. Dylan was there as well, but it was like going to the student of this guy. Why don't I go right to this guy? And so the entire time I've been in real estate, Jeff has been my number one go-to guy. I love him and his family. They've all been a great help. Tax benefits. That's something I learned. I know buying your first home at the end of the year, you're like, oh, I got some tax benefits from buying a house. Well, somehow I got more money back after owning 2 houses than I did on my first house. I was like, what the fuck? Right? That didn't make sense to me either. I thought somehow I was going to have to pay more. I had a tax CPA that was doing my taxes, and I didn't know how I felt about him having to pay him. I'm like, well, I could do my taxes, and I guess I'll try it this time if it works out. And when he gave me the number I was going to get back, I was like, I'm happy to give you money. So that was great, a great lesson. I learned how investment properties build wealth. And originally it was more of like, hey, I'm going to get, I can sell the house later down the road and I'll have that much money to utilize as retirement. Well, I've learned that you don't have to sell that property at the end. You can utilize that money in the house on lots of different things. If you do it right, you're building the equity, you're building the rental fees, which always go up. It's been fun to watch. And I learned a lot of DIY improvement skills. Laying flooring was one I learned. I learned how to put in a sewer main. That was way fun. And a water line that broke as well, creating a big sewer pond. I got pictures later if you want to see that one. I learned a lot about myself as a person with my ethics and my capabilities. I was in the military a long time ago, and one of the biggest hurdles was my mind, which, listening to David Goggins' book, I could really relate with because he talks about the mind being the biggest hurdle. What is that book name?
Can't Hurt Me. Can't Hurt Me.
Can't Hurt Me. One of my favorite books. And lost my train of thought. But yeah, ethics. That was a big one because I had to start thinking about how I was going to treat the tenants. My first tenant was kind of a little different. She had this whole background and story that became really crazy and not exciting. But now that I had a few tenants, like, am I going to be the landlord that just kind of puts it off? Or am I going to be the landlord that goes out right now? Which really went hand in hand with my own personal recovery from my past. And I just implemented those into how I treat other people as tenants. And it's worked out great so far. My third property was in 2020. This was a fun time. If anybody remembers that, that was 4 years ago. That was right after the summer of 2019, which was very fun. But I wanted to smooth out the property management. Property management was a little rough at the time. I think I talk about it in another slide a little bit more. But I wanted to do more renovations on my own because it turns out that I like doing it. And I can save a ton of money if I do it myself. I wanted to purchase my next home in 18 months. And I wanted to help my brother and his wife. They had just gotten married. They were living in one of those BYU approved houses. They weren't BYU students. But if you've ever seen those apartments that are for those students, it's horrible. They're like cinder block walls with nothing's taken care of. And theirs was just a shit show. So they moved in upstairs right away because it was already ready to go. And he helped do some of the renovations to help keep his costs down. So I wasn't really bringing in, he got a great deal. So I knew it was going to take a little longer to get my next rental. But I think helping family is super important, and it's turned back to help me out. The stats on the house, I bought it for $250. Same price as the other one. I don't know how, because everybody was trying to buy houses. Jeff was my realtor again on this, so that's how. And if you remember, he didn't want to budge on anything, like nothing. It was a divorce sell. The renovations ended up costing $7,000 around over the next 6 months. And the rent today is $2,050.
What do you think that house is worth today?
This house today, I don't know if I go over it. I don't know. But today, I think it's worth like $425.
You're like essentially doubling each property.
Yeah. Yeah, I think timing could have been better, but I'm grateful for everything that's happened. Doubling is impressive.
Yeah.
Never thought that. The lessons I learned, full basement install, where I ripped out the bathroom that was down there. I ripped out the wall, ripped out a bunch of stuff, and I installed an entire kitchen, a whole new bathroom. And I'm going to go down to this in a second, but I did it all myself without any permits. That is a lesson I learned. So property management for me, hiring an external company ended up being more work and more money. The companies, I'm guessing it was just the individuals that were helping me out at the time, but they didn't know what they were doing and they weren't great with finances. So I ended up losing money and I ended up almost having utilities shut off on tenants, defaulting on a mortgage. It was a big nightmare. I didn't default, but it got close to it. So I found out that it was going to be me that was going to manage my properties. So I learned how to do that. I asked a lot of questions to a lot of people. And today my brother helps me because I don't like doing it. But it's a lot more fun. I like doing it myself, and I know where all my money is going. And none of it's hidden. I learned about the city ordinances. So going out there, I recommend anybody that's buying their first home, if they're trying to do it, or they're trying to help somebody, always guide them to the city ordinances and what you want to do in the future with that property. Even though my neighbors all had second kitchens in the basement for a mother-in-law, they had rezoned the whole neighborhood where I couldn't do that. It was like I don't know how many, like 10 years before, but they never let anybody know. I ended up having my neighbor wanted to do the same thing because he already had a kitchen He's like, well, why can't I do it if he's doing it? And the city's like, well, he can't do it. So they came in and said, why do you have the second kitchen in here? They were nice. They inspected it, and now it's on title, but I still can only rent it out as a single family. So that was one of my lessons. So going forward now, I always look into that a little bit more. Unexpected complications. COVID-19 pandemic was a huge one. I spent a lot of time just living in that basement, doing nothing. Or no, I don't know if anybody noticed, like there was a huge boom of like self videos of people doing things, projects, and it was like booming up everywhere. I decided I was going to do some workout ones, and all I did was I just recorded a whole bunch and never did anything with them because they were not good. So put this slide in there, you know, the great reset button, because now property values were just skyrocketing. So it was time to reevaluate what kind of property I was going to use. Because prior to this, I wanted the 2-story so I could have upstairs and downstairs. Or I was, you know, I just wanted a nice split somewhere where I could rent out 2 as 1. That took a while. I put in a fence yesterday and my back hurts. Never put in a fence though. So yeah. I used that auger, a single man auger, and they torque really hard and twist your back. Get the 2-man with somebody. So the reevaluating, so the types of property, I kind of came under like, hey, I can only afford like a single level, smaller home. So the home size was definitely a lot smaller. I wasn't going to be able to do a split and rent it out as dual. My cash flow previously had been $300,000. I mean, oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, $300. I had to walking away. I had to make $300 on a house if it was going to be worth it to me. And at the time, there was nothing that was going to make that happen for me. So I decided that if I can break even, because I've been learning from the people around me, and most people take a loss on their houses, their investment properties. So I thought, well, if I can just break even, that'll be okay for me. I can make that work, especially since I've been cash flowing on the other properties. I had a little extra that I could cover that difference if needed. My desired location changed. I wanted to be the north end of Utah County because that's where I've been living. I loved it. And I did not want to go south of Springville in Utah County because yeah, but it turns out that the south end of the valley is pretty awesome, and I love it. That's where I ended up buying my next property. But funding future projects, how I was going to do that, I needed to find that out because I had the same amount of funds with the same job, making just a tiny bit more than when I first bought my first house. So I really hadn't moved on in work. They really hadn't. They said they took care of me, but they never really did. So I was still working on an extremely tight budget in a really expensive market. My renovation size needed to be a little different. I needed to reevaluate a career change. I got my real estate license. I had already had it at this point in that house in the basement. You know, I sat there online and did it while I was home for a few weeks here and there. So I got my license, and then I started out with this group right here. I refinanced all my properties because the rates were incredible, right? So I think the lowest I had was a 2.7, right? In that first house, I refinanced, and I took out 40,000 out of that house so I could afford to buy a next one. And that worked out super well. My fourth rental property I bought in 2021. My goal was to complete do a complete gut job because all the houses that I could afford needed a complete gut job. I wanted to buy my next house in 3 years. That's kind of what I set for myself. Buying time to navigate real estate market. I had no idea what was going to happen. I just got my real estate license. I was trying to quit my job. House prices were skyrocketing. Interest rates, didn't know where those were going to be. So I planned to stay in that house for 3 years, give or take. The cost of the house was $307,000. So that was a lot for me, but it was my first deal too as a realtor, which was pretty awesome because I worked with the other side of it was with a company that liked to give really teeny tiny commissions. Yeah. And this one was set in dollar amounts. It was horrible. However, it was great because they didn't really do much, and I got to get the price down from where it was to what it is, $307,000. I offered over, got under. It was a great learning experience. The renovation cost me about $35,000 over 6 months, and that was a complete gut job where I did almost everything. And total rent right now is $1,825. They do pay a pet deposit on there because everybody has animals nowadays. So my fifth property is not actually a fifth property. It's the fourth property where it's a corner lot, and the city said I could turn a garage into an ADU. So I ran with that because I couldn't afford to buy another house because I still worked at the same property and I hadn't gotten rooted in my real estate license yet that well. So everything just started changing again. I've been able to mix it up. But my goal was to make it my primary residence where I lived, because it's just me and a little dog, Hank. I learned the process of building from start to finish. So I drew all my plans. I did all my licensing. I did everything but the concrete in the house. I documented the process with videos and pictures. I started posting them online. I've gotten for me, I think it's a lot of traction for people reaching out and talking about it, and hopefully that goes into something in the future. But I pretty much eliminated my mortgage payment by doing that. The stats cost me $85,000 to do it. My original quote for myself was $35,000, so it was exponentially a lot more. I borrowed $30,000 as a private loan to do it. So my monthly payment is $500 for 5 years. So I don't think that's bad. And I'll be able to rent it out in the future when I purchase my next property, hopefully. Here's a few before and afters. A lot of these photos I sent to the lady that helped me do all this, and these are some that she liked seeing. So this was one of the properties. How easy it is to transform an ugly shed into something that's not so ugly. Just paint. That window, I couldn't afford to replace my windows, so I took out the panes, put in new ones, and redid all the windows on the basement level, and they turned out really nice. This was my second house. This was the kitchen beforehand. They had doors on it, but they kind of had this Western look to them, and I learned how to resurface them. And I did the countertop, the floors, everything in there. And that was the master bedroom. Went from that to that. And it was really not that difficult to create a better space. This is the complete gut job I did. They did amazing photos, and they even did a walkthrough tour. And when I went and looked at the house, it looked nothing like the photos. As a realtor, we never do that. So they did a great job, but you can't see all the rot in the photos. You can't see all the smoke burns. You can't see everything that's disgusting. There were 2 goats and a pig that lived in the house. They They had their living room set out in a tent in the backyard. It was quite interesting. But I learned how to install a decent kitchen. It turned out really nice. This was the bathroom. You could see through the floor around the toilet. They used carpet to cover up a lot of the rot and holes. There were mice that lived in this area, like a ton of them. And I had a little guy that kept coming in and out of here. And he transferred to this tub, the new one. Somehow he found a way in, so I foamed him out. But yeah, poor guy. And I did use that green mouse deterrent that kills them. This was my ADU that I built on the last property I purchased, that complete gut job. I was originally going to rent out this space right here, like maybe gravel it out and rent it out as a pad for RVs. Because I heard you could do that, and I was like, well, $75 a month really isn't much for down here. Up north you could get more, but at this current location it wasn't much. And then I love tiny houses, and I thought, well, what if I could do something with the garage? So I started contacting the city, and the city said, well, as long as everything's done properly and you get a rental license for it, we'll let you do that. They wanted to sync them both together, so I went through the whole process, completely legal, and everything by the book, and nobody can complain about it, passed every test, which was awesome because I did it and my dad helped me. And it turned out really nice.
And that's where you live, right?
That's where I live currently. It's a single bedroom, 635 square feet. I don't pay any utilities. My LLC pays them for me. So my overhead cost right now is really low, which is good for a lot of reasons. But this is what's next. Recently, I decided to quit my job completely, and the only way I was going to do that is if I could find a way to create more income and just do it. So I purchased this property Tuesday. My goal was to quit my W-2, go all in, full reno and flip, make a profit. I've been thinking about it, never wanted to do it because I've been doing the long-term investing, and short-term just seemed way risky, right? Like you don't know where the market's going to be, but in all my years, in the last 9 years, all I've seen is it always just goes up. There's little hiccups here and there, but if you time things a little bit, I don't see how you can mess up it unless you overspend. So we had a training here, Kaylee Fawcett. Mm-hmm. And after hearing her story, I thought, you know what, if she can do it with where she comes from, then I can do it. And so I started doing a little research, talked to a lot of people, which are all my friends today. All the people I have in my life all have what I want. So that's awesome. And my goal is to make a profit. The stats on this house, I was going to wholesalers, which is a completely different market. It's really intense, and I'm still getting used to it. But I found this through a lead just because I was nice to a realtor. She called me up and said, hey, there's this house. You can go talk to the lady if you want. I asked her what she wanted out of it because somebody told me how to do that. And we came up with a good solution, which was way under market value. Cost was $225. My renovation budget, which I haven't spent anything on yet, is $50,000. And I hope that it brings in $350. ARV for after repair value. I learned that through this. I didn't know what that meant. Because I think we make up words all the time. Projected time, after 6 months, I have to start paying a little bit more. So I will have it sold in 6 months. But I'm excited about it. I threw in some pictures for this. this is the house I just bought.
Nice.
Yeah, I've shown a few friends and they say, this is overwhelming. I don't want to help you, or give me ideas and but I just saw a lot of potential. She's a hoarder. But, oh, we can't edit that out, can we? It's a beautiful house that needs a lot of work. Okay. I think both sides came out on top. She got what she wanted. I've gotten what I wanted. And that's that.
Is that what she left behind?
No, so she's actually clearing out a whole bunch. She's really, besides what it looks like, it's really clean inside. So I think it's going to work out great. I'll have to do some of the haul out, but not bad. I just put up my Instagram QR code because everybody always has a QR code at the end, But if you want to follow along any of my projects in the future, that's where they will all be posted. Yeah, that's the story. Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody have questions for Ian?
That's not bad.
Katie's online and she said, "This is so amazing. Ian waited to go direct to seller and close the deal."
Faucet?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Kaylee.
She learned something from you today. I'm sure she did.
Yeah, maybe. I learned a lot from her. I've been talking to her back and forth on this whole process. She's been a great help. So, any other questions? We just end it, right?
Yeah, we can shut up. So I wrote down a couple of notes so that I think are important for most people to take away, and maybe talking points for your clients and stuff like that. I like that you showed the projects you did, then you talked about the lessons you learned from doing it or whatever. Did you take note that Ian said he bought his first property when his income was at poverty level? How many people aren't looking at properties or don't think that they can buy right now because in their mind, it's not for them, right? They don't think. Ian took action even though he's like, I don't know how I can do this, but I want to do this, right? The other thing that I thought was super important too was you said that you learned a lot about yourselves, your ethics and your capabilities. When you're tested and when you're put in situations where you have to make decisions, sometimes you could go the easy route. You could do, make decisions that maybe would go against your character, and those are testing times. So I really like that comment. And I love that you surround yourself with people you learn from, because you said that all of your friends have what you want.
Yeah.
Right? How many of you have heard that you are the sum of the top 5 people you hang around, right? Or some version of that. People are always saying, hey, who you hang around with matters. Who you ask questions to matter. Like, Ian doesn't want to take a lot of advice from somebody on his next investment purchase that's never bought one before.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's great. Or your friends that saw those pictures and said, dude, I'm not even going to participate in this or whatever, because they don't know what he needs to know. So awesome stuff, Ian. I'm super glad. This is going to be recorded. This would be a great thing for you guys to even share with your clients and stuff. And Ian, yes.
So in every case, did you move yourself into the building so you got the loan that you're?
Yeah, that's something I didn't touch on. So my first loan was a first-time home buyer loan, which worked out great for the time. But then I did conventional each property because I would move into that property, satisfy the loan terms, and then I would buy my next, satisfy the loan terms, do the next. It's been a great help being single with no independence. And then when I refinanced everything, I had to do the ones I wasn't living in as investment properties. So they were a little higher, but I mean, I said, like, when I refinanced at 2.7, I think the refinances came in at like 3.4 or 3.5 for the investment properties. So it was great timing. And Corey has done all my loans ever since that first one.
And you never used your VA?
Never used my VA. It just never, first, I didn't know about them, or I didn't know enough about them. And Corey's been great about choosing which one is going to help me the most.
And so when you did your first property, you said you were learning to put some money in savings. So you hadn't saved enough for a down payment for your first one.
No, I hadn't saved enough. So the way my first property happened was I was in love with a woman, and I'm like, well, how am I going to be able to afford a ring? So I had a rock crawler that I sold, and then she broke up with me shortly after that, and I was like, well, here's my down payment. So,
And so then going into your second one, did you take equity out of the first one to do your down payment on the second one?
no, I didn't know how to do that, and I didn't. This is something I'm actually just wrapping my head around the last year on how to.
So how did you come up with the down payment for your?
I didn't spend any money. I saved. Yep. I didn't. I was very tight and frugal. So if I had to go replace a faucet, I didn't go buy the brand new faucet. I went and bought one from a secondhand store. I shopped deals. I went and fixed it myself, bought the little O-ring instead of replacing the whole thing, and watched a lot of YouTube University,
So you came up with the cash for your down payments for all your success.
Yep. I came up with all the cash for each one. Working.
So you haven't taken anybody out. Well, you said one, you took 40.
Yeah, when I refinanced everything, I took $40,000 out of that first home, and I kept my payment. It just went up by about $20 or $30 a month, and I used that to renovate and for the down payment on my last property.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because
Yeah.
this is a strategy. Not everybody will do if they've got family, kids, they're in school,
Yeah.
this and that. It's very inconvenient, so it doesn't make sense for a lot of people. But if they can, 0, 3, 5% down as an owner occupied is a lot better than 15, 20, 25, right? And it makes it more doable. You saw his timeline. He was moving about 18 months, every 18 months. When we do an owner occupied loan, you're signing because you're getting better rates, lower down payment, better interest rates than an investor, but you're also acknowledging your intent is to live in it for at least 12 months. As time goes on, that's another thing that some people don't understand is, well, I bought this as an owner occupied. Am I going to have to pay off that loan when I move? No, that's already financed, that's in place, right? And so that's just a game plan that a lot of people could do that's doable. And then, not to say that he couldn't, if he had access to some equity in a property or whatever, he could do it the other way and he put 20% down and buy another rental property.
Yeah.
But doing it this way, it seems like a slow process, right? But when time's going by anyway, right?
Yeah.
Looking back 10 years and you've actually purposely taken some action every year and a half, adds up quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life changing.
I just wanted to point out that, because you said a few times, oh, I'm talking to people who have done more than me. But Jordy Clark, who just mentioned on here, he just said, awesome story, love the progression. So I just wanted to throw that out there that anybody can get something from your story.
Yeah, awesome. Hopefully, Kaylee Fawcett, when she did her presentation, she did something similar to what I did. I know Jeff's done something, because I learned what he did. I had a friend that was doing something a little different. But any way to find, for me, it's like, in my head, if I want to retire and have my goals met, I'm going to find any way possible now so that I can have that then. If it means I only am renting out my bedroom and I live in the smaller bedroom, for now, I can do that. If it means my family lives upstairs and I have one person or a little family living downstairs, I'll do that so I can get to my next. I hate change. And this has really been really uncomfortable, but a huge learning lesson for me to be able to, I change like all the time now. My strategies, plans, I never was going to be a house flipper, and now I'm becoming a house flipper. But
it's growth.
Yeah, and Monday I will put in my 3 or 4 week notice on my W-2.
And where are you flipping this last one other than turning it into a rental?
So the reason why I'm not turning it into a rental is because I want to learn the house flipping experience. I want to do most of the work, so I know what goes into it. Also, I still don't make much money, and I don't have a way to keep it
It's
that I know of.
capital infusion, right? You're gonna flip it to get some capital.
Yeah, I'm gonna flip it, get some capital. Jordy Clark?
Mhm.
Yeah. Jordy Clark, his goal, so that's somebody I've seen a lot and talked to and follow him on Instagram. He, I believe, does 2 flips and keeps the third, or he did do that. And I thought, well, that's a great strategy. If I can do that, then that helps me keep building my portfolio, and that also creates my income for the year. So that's my goal right now, is to flip 2 and hold the third. Hopefully I can do that this first year, but we'll see.
You heard he's on watching you, right?
Yeah.
Wait, is that who that was?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, that's crazy. That's awesome.
We have loved watching you. Yeah.
So the to the point you're asking these questions about, he didn't start with the, right? I mean, all these lessons he's learned. This is why this is so important to learn from somebody else's journey, because he's gotten to this point where now the goal is, hey, let's flip a couple and then keep the next one. It's a different game. It's a different experience. Didn't know anything about renovating. Then he built an entire ADU by himself, except for the concrete. That's crazy. I could never do that.
I don't ever want to do concrete. No desire.
Super cool. Well, and the other thing that I noticed in that story is, how many of us get super frustrated when our clients bring their own lender to the table? Like, and they're adamant they're going to use that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it. That's a learning experience as well.
Yeah.
And so this is a great segue, by the way.
Yeah. No, that's been the best thing I ever did, was listen to Jeff on lenders. I spoke to a professional, and the professional gave me his professional advice, and now I do that.
There you go. And so why don't you introduce Corey for us?
Yeah.
Corey's our sponsor.
Corey and Tawny are our sponsors for this. You guys want to come up? And
On
share a little bit?
purpose.
Yeah, on purpose.
Part of his experience is like sharing, the people that have made these things happen. So Corey and Tawny are our preferred lenders. They're Ian's preferred lender. And now we want to introduce them to you. So come stand right in.
Yeah, I'm in the way.
Tell us about yourself, and we've even got a slide for you.
Well, I just gotta say, if real estate doesn't work, you could segue into stand-up comedy. It was funny. I don't think it was intentional either. It was all, that's you were unintentionally funny. I loved it.
Well, thank
you. But no, I mean, we've been working with Lynn and Jeff for over a decade now. Tawny and I have been a team for about 10 years. These guys were one of the reasons I had to hire Tawny, because they kept me so busy.
Thank you.
And then obviously that's led to relationships with a lot of people in this room that I've met and worked with, doing the loan for Ian, and then kind of transitioning to be his lender as he became a real estate agent. It's been fantastic. Yeah. But our business model and our mantra has always been, we want to be a resource. We want to add value. Again, Lynn, Jeff, Ian, other people in this room, they've used us for, they have a listing and they're hearing something from the other side that doesn't make sense to them. So we're not there just to help you on the transaction, to help your buyers. We're there to be a valuable resource to you in your business. So again, most lenders, don't bug me if I'm not making $1. A lot of people in any industry are like, don't bug me if I'm not making $1. That's not how we do business. I spend a lot of time answering questions on transactions that I'm not involved in. Ian uses me as a resource all the time. Hey, somebody told me this, I'm hearing this. That's why we're here. So if we can ever be a resource to anybody in the room, anybody on Zoom, please reach out to us. I think our contact information is up there. Tawny and I work as a team. Tawny's licensed as well. And so we're interchangeable. You can ask either of us questions, or we get back to you all hours of the day, because again, with 2 of us, there's a lot more availability.
And just to add, as far as like Ian, to Ian's credit, he's been really awesome in forward thinking about his real estate plan. So even from the day one, when he spoke to Corey and I, Corey put a good plan in place for him of how he was going to obtain the next rental property and thereafter. So if it's something that's on the horizon for you, I definitely recommend reaching out to Corey, just so that we can get a good game plan in place for when it comes to tax season and tax preparation. So that we can get a good strategy outlined for you.
And I know I don't look old enough to, but I've been in the business for 30 years. So I've seen a couple transactions, worked with a lot of different people. What I love about this industry is, despite doing it for 30 years and literally doing thousands of transactions, I still see stuff new all the time, which makes it fun. I have great resources behind me. So if I can't answer a question, I can tap into my resources and get questions answered. So yeah, utilize this as a resource, and we love these guys. We love everybody in the Marchant family and everybody in the Marchant team. So we're here to help any way we can.
Thanks, Corey.
Tawny, grab some foods. We've got some
It's a
pizzas
local
and
company
salads.
too, so if you like what they have to offer, support.
Nice. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I
Oh.
wasn't gonna be the one to say something. Screenshot, take a picture, reach out to us if you need their contact information. Hey, thanks guys on Zoom. Appreciate you all. I'm gonna shut off Zoom now. This was recorded. If you want to, if you missed part of it, if you want to watch that or share it with your clients, reach out to me. We'll get you a link to the recording stuff. But say goodbye to you guys on Zoom, and we're gonna have some lunch and network here. So see you.
Amazing job.
Thank you.
Yeah, so good.
That was one of the best things.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It feels terrible, I tell you.
What was-
Not in front of everybody.